to go. Yo, what's up? This is Splendid Radio on Pharcyde TV. My co-host Jeremy Scipio thought the Nas concert and Wu-Tang was a little bit liver than than being a part of this podcast, but he the one who's missing out. You know what I'm saying? I've seen Wu-Tang and Nas more times than I probably got fingers. You know what I'm saying? So more power to Jeremy. He'll be with us next week. But I feel kind of blessed because I got JustKing Jones all to myself. You know what I'm saying? JustKing Jones, cool dude. Just met him a couple weeks ago. He was handed off to me by Brown, backstage, Gorilla concert, the Forum, sold out show. And Brown was like, yo, man, this is somebody you need to get with. You know what I'm saying? He's somebody you need to talk to. He's coming up. Whoop-de-whoop, whoop-de-whoop. Chopped it up lightweight. I have not seen him toot a saxophone or a woodwind instrument, but the company that he keeps lets me know that he is far capable of of with who he's with. He's capable. Not like I don't need to hear him or whatever. I know he's that. So with all that being said, man, I really appreciate you coming into the Splendid Radio space and letting me ask you a couple questions. So with that being said, where were you the first time you heard hip hop and what was the song?
Yeah, so I was in New Jersey. I grew up in Paterson, New Jersey. That's where I was born. The first thing I heard was Biggie Smalls. I was in my preschool, and I remember just hearing it at the school. It was Big Papa, and from then, like, that was probably my first like actual remembrance of hearing hip hop. You know, I was very young, like probably like 2 or 3 years old.
That's a pretty dope memory, man.
Oh yeah.
That's a pretty dope memory. You know, me, hip hop, you know, I kind of heard it when I was around 8 or 9. And then when I was about 13 years old, MTV was really popping, and Run DMC was like really doing their thing tough, and the Beastie Boys and all that. So that was an experience. But man, not only to hear hip hop when you're about 2 or 3, but to hear Biggie Smalls, which, man, one of the greatest to ever do it, man.
Definitely, yeah.
You know, I remember with Biggie, I wasn't really familiar with him, and kind of my measuring stick at the time, I didn't start working with the Pharcyde until like 97-ish, like around 97-ish or whatever. But before then, I was just a homeboy, always around and all that. And I remember they went to a rap convention, and they came back, and they were just going off about Biggie, man. Like, they were just going off about how dope. And I can't remember what album or what tape it was or whatever, but it was new music, you know, at that time. And it's a trip because I thought Biggie was dope, but I'm one of those people that really didn't understand who or what he was until after he had passed away.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So you got a very early start with hip hop. So let's just speed up to like maybe like right before your 13, 10, 11, something like. Did you ever think that hip hop was going to be as large as it is?
Yeah, so I didn't realize how global hip hop was until, you know, we're living in the hood and we moved to the suburbs, and I saw all these white and Asian kids listening to hip hop, maybe even more.
No, I'm knowing.
Patterson, and it kind of blew my mind that in some ways I'm like, yo, you guys know like more. Maybe it's because they have more access or what.
The resources.
Exactly. So yeah, they had so much access to music that I think that hearing it like reach other cultures, communities really like changed my perspective on it.
Mm-hmm. So Paterson, New Jersey. Paint it to me geographically. The only thing I know about New Jersey is that I went there Just Blaze threw a birthday party for his wife. He had Brown and one of the other guys in the group come out to perform, and where we stayed at was like right on the water, and we could look across the water and see. It might have been New York or something. My geography is horrible, but it was.
Okay.
We were on the New Jersey side, and we
Yeah.
looked across the water, and it was New York or something. Yeah, New York. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you were looking at the Hudson,
Okay.
and you were probably in like Jersey City or Hoboken, Weehawken, one of those areas. And yeah, you were probably looking at New York City, unless you were like really far out and you're looking at Philadelphia.
No, it was New York. It was New
Yeah,
York.
so it was definitely New York. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's dope. Yeah, I actually, at the time, I was like super into. I don't know if I was really into Luke Cage back then, but I remember feeling like, oh man, this is a this looks like a scene from like a Luke Cage or Daredevil or something like that, like looking across the river. So coming up in New Jersey,
Yep.
uh, New Jersey, New York, the difference.
Well, let's talk about the similarities. I was just in a
Okay.
rehearsal having this conversation. So one of the similarities is that we get all the New York radio and television. So one thing I grew up on was Hot 97. You know, that was what you listened to in Jersey. Um, Fox 5, all of that stuff really was pushed in Jersey, like almost more than I didn't discover like Jersey news until maybe I was like 13 or 14. It was called
Wow.
News 12 New Jersey. I was like, I didn't even know we had news in New Jersey because New York kind of overshadowed that. But we have better bagels. You know, I was just having that conversation. Our pizza's better. The Statue of Liberty is technically in New Jersey. Giant Stadium was in New Jersey. So, to all my New York brothers and sisters, just facts. It's just facts. But I
That's
love you
right.
guys.
Nah, dope. That's dope. So, what's your favorite hip hop movie?
um, I feel like I didn't even watch a lot of hip hop movies, honestly, but Get
Mhm.
Rich or Die Trying was one that I saw when I was pretty young. Um, so that's probably gonna be my answer.
Nah, I can live with it. I'll tell you what, from somebody that's a little older, check. Well, because I'm from California, I'm always gonna go back to breaking. Beat Street was dear to me. I'm
Okay.
always gonna go back to breaking, but I'm so late with hip hop history. Like I've loved hip hop since I heard it and whatnot, but Wild Style too. Wild Style that'll help. Wild Style helped me understand some stuff because I actually I met Prince Whipper Whip, um, one of the guys from like he was like one of the MCs from Wild Style, which like Wild Style was kind of like to hip hop. Wild Style was uh like a like a James Dean movie or like something like it's like it's so OG like it's the yeah it was like the forerunner of so much that had to do with hip hop. And when I met Whipper Whip,
Hmm.
everybody was kind of like jocking him, and they were just like, "Oh, Whipper," and this was in LA, you know what I'm saying, in Hollywood actually, and they were like, "Oh, you know, Whipper Whip," woo, woo, woo. And I kind of couldn't understand why everybody was jocking him the way they were jocking him, and so uh, it wasn't until years later that I saw the movie, and then it hit, and I was like, "Oh, that's who that guy was," you know what I'm saying? Because he's from the Zulu Nation, and I knew he was Ice-T's homeboy, and I think Ice-T might have flew him out in him and Africa Islam and some other cats that were down with the Zulu Nation, which was kind of like down with Ice-T's original whole little clique. And I know Ice-T, you know him from Law and Order, but he was an MC once upon a time.
Yeah, yeah, for
You
sure.
know what I'm saying? So nah, that's dope. So what was your uh earliest memory as a musician?
As a musician, like me personally, or my
Uh-huh.
earliest musical experience.
Uh, I'll say wanting to be a musician.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, really, my parents exposed me to music. My parents were in this gospel choir growing up, and when we were living in Patterson, we used to go to the Bronx on like Tuesdays and Fridays or Saturdays, something like that. And I remember seeing my parents always singing, and I started singing with them. They would always bring me to rehearsal, so they didn't have to get a babysitter. And that's when I first got exposed to music. And then like growing up, seeing like my uncles play music, really is what led me to wanting to be in music and experience music. This is like before, like years before I played saxophone, but it was like just being exposed like through church and my parents and family members.
Hmm. I
Yeah.
don't know if I shared this with you, but the night that I met you, if I didn't share it with you, I was thinking about it.
All
But
right.
it's so funny. Like I played the trumpet. Did I tell you that story?
No, I don't think
Oh,
so.
okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it. I didn't tell you. This is a good one. So, um, my dad wanted me to play a musical instrument in junior high school, like I was maybe around like 12, 13 years old, because he said he wanted me to be able to, whether it was a play, whether it was a movie, radio, just to myself, relaxing. He wanted me to be able to identify with something that I could form like a one-on-one kind of connection with. And
Wow.
so, he played the trumpet. And so he was like, I want you to play an instrument. It doesn't matter what it is, but you need to be in band class, like my seventh grade year, whatever. And so I was like, well, I'm gonna play the trumpet because it only has three valves. I'm
Oh.
funny as hell. I was like, okay, it's gonna be easier because it only has three valves. I didn't understand I had to have a lip. I didn't
Mhm.
understand like all of that. And I was mediocre at it once upon a time. But then it was just kind of like, man, uh my passion, I think, defeated me because I thought it was gonna be so easy because it was only three valves and whatnot. so
Yeah.
so how did you find yourself into the whole woodwind space?
Yeah, so I remember being at school, like there was these two guys came in, they demonstrated every instrument. I'm talking about like the violin, flute, which I eventually ended up playing that later in my life. But they demonstrated the drums, all these different instruments, and they finally got to the saxophone, and I was hooked immediately. I must have been 8 years old,
Mhm.
and I remember that day, I ran home and I told my dad, I'm like, yo, I'm gonna play the saxophone, like I have to. And like lo and behold, maybe a few weeks later, he actually got me a saxophone, and the
Man.
rest was history. Um, yeah, and I appreciate him. I thank him for that every year because it's what's brought me around the world and all these things.
Hey man, the gift that never stopped giving.
It never stops giving.
It never stopped giving. So um it sounds like you came from a gospel background. And
Yeah.
so you get a little older, you're about 10, 12, 11, 12, 13 years old. What was your like middle school soundtrack at the time?
Ooh, a few things like I definitely was listening to a lot of 50 and G Unit back then. Also a lot of Luda, like "Pimpin' All Over the World" was a song that like I always like would blast that, in my room, and I had no idea what any of that stuff meant. Like, but then I remember like years later, I hadn't heard the song for maybe like 10, 15 years, and just like looking back, I'm like, wow, I listened to the song so much, and then to be able to like not saying I was a pimp or nothing because I definitely wasn't, but to like be in all these different places and like understand what Luda was talking about in the song
Yeah.
was just like a whole 360 moment in my life. I was like, wow, this is a song I grew up on. I had no idea about any of that stuff, and then like I was blessed enough to like be in all these different places that he's mentioning in the song, and actually be able to identify it with it later. So yeah, that's my answer to that.
Nah, that's dope. For me, I was turned out when I went to overseas, man. Like when I went overseas for the first time, I was selling merch, and um, the way that the guys I was traveling with at the time would do it is they would fly into Amsterdam and then like shake off all the jet lag, cobwebs, and all that kind of stuff. They knew a couple people who owned coffee shops,
Mm-hmm.
and so like the coffee shop experience was just amazing to me because it was like a bar. It was like a Starbucks bar without liquor. I mean, you've probably experienced it, but to me, it was like a Starbucks before there were Starbucks bar, no liquor, and it amazed me because like the people that I saw go there, like they didn't buy a lot of weed. Like they would only get enough to maybe smoke like while they were there, and then they might get a little bit to take home or whatnot. But like the coffee shop was where they went to unwind after work or just whatever. And I just remember being like, dang. And my first time to a coffee shop, I had a Jewish guy sitting on one side of me and a Muslim guy sitting on the other side of me. And we're sitting there and we're smoking and we're talking. And I'm like, the world is dope. I'm like, man, this is, this is just so much. But with those experiences, my first reaction was like, man, the US ain't nothing, man. We ain't got nothing in Cali. We ain't got nothing in, woo, 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 woo. So I was kind of preaching it to the people that I was out with. I was like, man, we don't have nothing like this. And then I figured out like, man, everybody's trying to get to the States, man. The States is the pulse. Like we're the heartbeat. Like there are dope things out in the world. There's different experiences and whatever. But what I learned is to not be blasphemous against mighty Los Angeles and these mighty United States of America. Yeah. And one of the things that the Muslim guy that I was sitting next to, that he brought to my attention, because I was, I immediately started bashing America, like, man, we don't have this, we don't have that. And he was like, man, in Los Angeles, you can get any type of food. You might have to drive a little bit, but you can get any type of food until like 2:00 in the morning. Like somewhere you will be able to find it. And then on that tour, as I went, and traveled and went through like super Eastern Europe and Germany and places where like, man, if you don't eat by 7:00, it's a wrap.
It's like, a wrap. Over.
Chips. They nicknamed me Duck Sandwich because I got a duck sandwich from the gas station, you know what I'm saying? So I definitely can understand what you're saying, talking about, getting your travel on and then being able to relate and bring it back to music. So while your soundtrack, you say 50, you say Ludacris and all that, you weren't listening to anything alternative a little bit? It wasn't anything outside of hip hop that you?
Outside of hip hop, definitely. I think I started listening to like jazz probably when I was about 12 or 13.
Mm-hmm.
Some like funk and soul, gospel, like I said, R&B, tons of that era. That was definitely tons of R&B. That's a fact. Before I got into jazz, I was really on R&B, smooth jazz kind of stuff. And then eventually it's like how I got into jazz and became like a jazz musician. So yeah.
Did you understand how dope, once you became a jazz musician, did you understand how dope Miles Davis was?
I'm still realizing how dope he is.
Man, let me tell you. For me, like I just always thought his album covers were dope. You know what I'm saying? And then like it was years after, because I was a DJ, like I DJ'd like in my maybe 19, 20, 21, 22-ish, maybe kind of 23-ish years I DJ'd, and I would do a little bit of digging at the time, and the way that I dug was like really by the record label art as well as the album art. So that was kind of how I picked stuff. And I just remember thinking Bitches Brew was like the dopest cover ever, but I never listened to it, but I had it because it was kind of like, okay, I'm cool, I got this, whatever.
Yeah.
And then when I heard it, I got more into it. But then after Miles passed and I kind of saw his story and saw his struggles and everything, it kind of all made sense to me. And it was kind of like, you have this musician, and this is something that I think people don't get with very with artists, very, very talented, like almost savant level, people, is
Mm.
that like, and I'm sure you're an incredible musician, but like when you have people that are at like savant level, the way that they perceive things is different than the way I perceive it or you perceive it or whatever. Like they're it's almost the way, and this is my perception, and it's not scientifically proven, I'm sure. This is a theory, but it's kind of like how you have autistic kids and they're just dope at what they do, but they might not have the social skills or whatever. I feel like Miles Davis, he was just so far ahead of everything that it was really like, you guys are peons, man. I'm not even like, I don't have the patience to deal or talk or whatever. And that's just where he was.
Mm.
That's just where he was. So what was the jazz musician that you gravitated to first?
I would say the longest reigning jazz musician influence for me was John Coltrane.
Okay.
I think he was like highly proficient,
Mm-hmm.
highly socially aware,
Mm-hmm.
politically aware, spiritually aware, and despite always doing his thing, pursuing excellence, like he was always speaking to the times with his music, always
Mm-hmm.
speaking to the times and speaking directly to the soul. Um, Miles Davis was the same way. Of course, they had a great relationship playing together as well. Miles and
Mm-hmm.
Coltrane. Um, yeah, I would say those two are two of the most influential. Someone of more like recent, um, who passed, back in 2018 was Roy Hargrove. He like really reminds me of those those guys, and he was just like a staple in the community, in New
Mm-hmm.
York, in the whole world, and was really like he inspired so many of us to like be ourselves. You don't have to be like a corny jazz musician. You could be anything, because like he had records with D'Angelo and Erica
Mm-hmm.
Badu, just relevant people. Like, so everybody's heard his sound, whether they realize it or not.
You know, a jazz musician that I really did not like his records. I'm sure his records did him justice, but me seeing him in person, and this was probably about maybe like 8 years ago. I went to the Gardena Jazz Festival, and that's Stanley Clark,
Ooh.
and I did not understand. Like you never could have told me, and I know who his son is. You know what I'm saying? But you meet these kids of these, their parents are, they're superstars in their own right, but because the child, you don't really make the connect to who the parent is. And so with Stanley Clark, I had met, rest in peace, Fudge, which Fudge is a Dave from De La's first cousin. He passed away, and he was working with George Clinton, and he was co-managing an artist with George Clinton's daughter, and she was on Raphael Sadiq's label. And so Fudge was like, "Oh, great, come over to the studio. I'm gonna meet and introduce you to Barbarella, and we're at Raphael's studio, blah blah blah." And Stanley Clark had come in, and he was playing some guitar on this artist's album, and it kind of blew me back. And like I'm a question asker, like I've always like, and it's so funny because if Brown is in my presence, he lets me go, but sometimes I can see he's like, "Man, you asking questions," you know what I'm saying? But I'm curious, so
Yeah.
I asked Raphael, I was like, "Dude, you play the bass, you play guitar, you play all this." I'm like, you got Stanley Clark. He's like, "Nah, man." He's like, I need, like, this is what I needed, because Raphael had produced the song. He's like, "No, this is what I needed for it." And I was like, "Okay."
Mm.
But when I went to the jazz festival and I saw Stanley Clark, and he just like went off. He was just like dope. And but that wasn't the part that blew me back. Like, Stanley Clark was dope, but the musicians he brought with him were like equal to what he was bringing. And I was like, "Man, this guy's incredible." and he has like 6 other people that are incredible along with him.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I get it. And it's crazy because jazz is something that I've gravitated towards, but it's something where I feel like maybe it's underappreciated to a certain extent in these days or whatever. But I always try to figure out like, how do you get the money together to get like all this talent? Because it's just like so much. But then when I watch movies like Ray and they showed like Quincy Jones and and all those cats doing it, it's like the artist will make money at the art where there is money to be made, but the really dope artists, they would do it without the money. You know what I'm saying? Not to be stupid, not to, be stupid or naive or just whatever, but it's kind of like they're very passionate, you know what I'm saying? And when people, and it's just like me, like I don't have my barometer doesn't jump up and jump down. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm pretty much on 10. If I'm interested in it, I'm just like, you know what I'm saying? I don't have a second gear or third, like either I'm with it or it doesn't have my attention.
Okay.
And yeah, but anyway, I could rant and rave about jazz all day, all night. Yeah. But yeah, Stanley Clarke, dude, that was really an amazing experience that I had watching him do what he does. So if you could create an elective in high school, what would it be?
Okay. Definitely turning your passion into a business.
Okay.
Like, and I think nowadays that's even more important because everybody's entrepreneurial driven. Mm-hmm. And in today's climate, I would say that turning people how to turn their passions, whether it's music, whether it's fashion, teach kids how to monetize it from an earlier age. We have all the resources now, social media, all that. If we create a clear pathway, mm-hmm. I think will help so many kids not have to fall into traditional roles or feel confused when it's time to do something that they love and make money.
So there's a part of the show, and this is a wild card, and it doesn't have to be you. It could be somebody you know. So the reason I came up with this part of the interview is because there was someone that I knew, and they got by the I can make you a whole bunch of money on crypto, but I need your Instagram, da 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 and da 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 da. So what? And so the part of this part is called the Monkey Hustle Chronicles. So it could be Chronicles. Yeah. So it could be you or somebody you know. But what's the craziest hustle you've ever seen run, either on you or somebody else?
Wow. The craziest hustle that I've ever seen run on me or somebody else. I really would say it's the I guess I don't know, it's called Susus or these you know what I'm talking about? Where it's you have to pay this amount of money like every Monday, and in like 7 weeks you're gonna get this amount of money, but I don't think those people ever end up getting paid off of that, because you have to convince like 30 other people to buy into this thing, you don't realize that the head honcho just got paid and you guys are all idiots. I've seen a few of those, and when the pandemic came around, that was happening with a lot of musicians that I knew, and I was like, y'all need to miss me with that. I don't do that. I'll keep my however much it is, and let you guys figure that out, because I have not heard of anybody coming up on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'll take that. That was a mild Monkey Hustle Chronicle, but that's definitely acceptable. So we talked about your early beginnings, gospel, some exposure to hip hop, and kind of coming into your own. So your senior year of high school, what did you think your path was going to be when you graduated?
I had options. So at one point, I thought I was going to become like an accountant. One point, I thought I was going to be an architect. Um, but I knew that I was getting like really serious about music, so I decided to go to music school and I studied education. I was studying education, but once I got into college, I did about maybe a semester or a year of music education with music performance, and eventually dropped that. And still ended up becoming an educator somehow, which is, I guess I can't run away from it. I like teaching people.
Ah, it's dope. Nah, and you know what? They need a person like you because you can relate on so many levels to the processes. And you're kind of like you're that person that's like, you know what? I'm gonna give them what I didn't have. Like, although I might have had a lot, I'm gonna give and I feel that way because I was just telling somebody a story about one of my homeboys that was a police officer. And my boy that was a police officer, you know, there was a rap group that came into LA. I was kind of the hospitality. We were driving down Crenshaw, which is a popular street, whatever.
Yeah,
And I had a convertible Bronco. And I had these guys with me and they were smoking and it was like bumper to bumper traffic on Crenshaw, and the trail of smoke was like floating back, and so I see a police car going the opposite direction. So I'm just like, oh man. And I definitely see him looking at me, and I'm like, oh shit. And then the dudes who I'm with, they're from Oakland, and they're like, oh man, and they getting all nervous and da da da. So I'm just like, well, I'm really not tripping too hard because we're going opposite directions. So and it's traffic. So for them to bust the U and do all that and whatever, like, are they really gonna do whatever? So long story short, they did bust the U and they drove in the little middle lane and they came up next to me. And homeboy was like, Greg, we could smell that coming from the opposite. It was one of my homeboys, you know what I'm saying? And he was on the LAPD or whatever.
got you.
And I say that to say, I had drinks with my homeboy years later after the fact. And I was like, dude, we need police officers. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because like we need people that understand the culture. Like I wasn't like I'm the same dude, just younger, but I'm a
Yeah,
cool dude, whatever. But when you were telling me your story, I kind of felt the same way about you being an educator. Like, man, we need an educator that's gonna be compassionate to the needs of like young musicians and people that are, forward thinkers and all that. Because the thing about it is when you, as an educator, when you have a student that's kind of like a lump of clay in your hand, you can either like break their spirit or you can uplift them. And I just feel like, I don't know you from Adam, but from hanging out a couple weeks ago and then kind of doing my research on you, I feel like you would be more apt to kind of mold somebody and guide them along the way and give them some of the nutrients they need to like be the best they can be.
exactly.
Yeah, that's dope. So how has social media affected your brand?
It's affected it a lot. It's interesting. The day I met Udi, we were in Barcelona, and I went to the green room, and he was basically giving a whole master class on social media and how important content is, and um, that like conversation really sat with me, and I felt like the whole day, the whole week. I was there in Spain for a week off between these two shows with the Gorillas. It really sat with me about how important social media is. And one thing I love about it is you can kind of control the narrative of who you are and what you want to display to the public, um, and you can show parts of yourselves that maybe people won't get to see based off of just seeing you on stage. Even through personal relationships, sometimes when people follow me, they get to see deeper into who I am as a man, some of the things I like to do. So For me, social media is really a tool for people to know what I want them to know about me and to connect on a deeper and more intimate level.
I had a guy who I knew, and the conversation of Instagram came up. And this was probably about 10 years ago or so.
Okay.
And I said, you know, I look at dogs and food. And he's like, you're using it wrong. he's like, I was like, well, man, I like dogs, I like food. You know what I'm saying? And he's like, you're not using it right. And
Yeah.
then, you know, years later, I kind of was like, oh, you can kind of be the Pied Piper to, you can create an audience and then be the Pied Piper to that. Like, you know, to Brown's credit, you know, he didn't get his own IG page until like maybe it might be 2 months old, maybe, or so, like something like that. But
Wow.
he's known social media so well, though. You know what I'm saying? He worked a group page, and he's done other things. He's kind of pointed me in directions and whatnot. But it was amazing him having his social media for such a short amount of times. And I'm sure the Gorillas helped and him, you know, the song and all that kind of stuff. But me watching how he keeps people engaged, you know what I'm saying, like through content. And really it's just like picking content from here, picking content from there, reposting, resharing content and all that. And like it's almost like being in an ocean and you're throwing out anchovy. There's big tuna out there, whatever, and you kind of figure out where to throw the anchovies to get the, you know, to get the tuna to come to you. But it's dope that you because I went through your social media, and it's not really cluttered with a whole bunch of stuff. Like it's pretty much a direct shot at who JustKing Jones is. As JustKing Jones, the working musician, and kind of like on that kind of thing. And I thought that was kind of dope.
Yeah.
You know, I thought that was dope. So, how has the culture affected what you do?
How has the culture affected in terms of social media or just my life?
Your life?
Right. I think it helps me actually really see what's important. I think it shifted even the way and what kind of art I create. Um, I'm really trying to use it as a cyclical
Mm-hmm.
um, approach where I allow the culture and life to experience me so I can give part of myself back to the culture.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really creating music for people like me. So if I'm experiencing life with these people, you know, if you're hanging out with me one night, that night might end up in a song, you know. So it's really it's a relationship, you know. It gives to me the culture, and I want to give back to the culture. And really, one thing I'm passionate about, I'm Jamaican, you know, first generation born in America, but I create a lot of music, you know, at least where I'm shifting to artistically is creating music for people that you know, like Caribbeans, Africans that grew up in America. I feel like sometimes they don't have people with that experience that can really relate to, you know. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
right now I'm trying to like make sure that they feel seen and heard when it comes to my art. Because like yeah, we grew up with all the problems of the American struggle, but then we also grew up with all the problems of the
Coming
growing
from
up
the
with
island.
immigrant parents, you
Uh-huh.
know, and it's like dealing with that at home is a whole different thing than what you deal with when you go outside. You know, it's a whole different experience. It's crazy, and tapping into that more has even really helps me to connect with especially with black folk overseas, specifically in Europe and in the UK. It's something that I'm able to dig and explore deeper because I feel like when we connect on that tip, we are we connect even deeper. So yeah, I'm just trying to pull from every aspect of my culture. Growing up on the East Coast is something that really impacted me. Growing up with immigrant Caribbean parents has impacted me a lot, and I want to speak to. That's why sometimes it may look like you release an R&B one week and then Afro beats the next is like because it's just all a part of my experience, you know. Um, it's all a part of my experience, and I'm trying to give you guys myself.
Interesting. So, being that we dug into your roots a little bit, I was talking to this guy, who one of my homeboys is kind of like a business partner with, and the guy's in Ethiopia right now, but he's an African cat. He's a South African cat, but he's in Ethiopia. But he's an older guy. Like he's probably about like 65, might be a little bit older than 65,
Okay.
but he really has his hand on the pulse of culture. Like it's crazy because it's like you'd be like, how does this guy know? But he knows. So we were having this conversation about 3 weeks ago, and he tells me, um, you know what, Greg, I'm gonna be honest with you. There's something going on in the world right now, and you really need to find a way to dig into this, or just, and he knows that I manage Brown or just whatever. So he's like, you might want to share it with Brown or do. And the word that he used was I'm a piano.
Woo!
So was he putting too much on it? He was like, it's the biggest thing ever and it's taking off and whatever. So speaking to someone who knows Afro beats, someone who's of Caribbean descent and all this, explain to the anyone watching or that will watch in the future, what is I'm a piano, and how is this thing taking over the way it is?
Yeah, so I feel like there's two types of I'm a piano. Well, one, I'm a piano. A lot of times it gets paired in with Afro beats that's popular right now, like Wizkid, Burna Boy, but it's not. It's much like faster tempo, and I feel like South African I'm a piano is one thing, and there's definitely some like EDM influence, in my opinion, and it's slightly different from the I'm a piano that's happening like in West Africa sonically, but yeah, like a good example of like a popular I'm a piano song might be it's called Mona Lisa. I'm trying to remember the artist. But Chris Brown's one of the feature artists on that. I would say check out that song, and yeah, just check it out. It's definitely faster tempo
All right.
than
No,
Afro.
I'm a people. I'm telling you, the only reason I listen to this guy is because he's about 65 years old, and he deals with a lot of house music, and he brings a lot of house music into the States. Like he's homeboys with like all the old, put it this way, he's been booking house shows since the 80s. You know what I'm saying? So he's that guy, but very legit guy. But he was trying to sell me on this, and I was kind of like, I just couldn't comprehend what he was talking about because he couldn't really give me a reference point of what to look for. But he's like, if you're doing music and if you're managing an artist, you guys need to know what I'm a piano is, because this thing is just taking off. But at the same time, if he's in Africa and that's where it's kind of coming from, and it's mushrooming out, he's probably there seeing what the influence is on all these people.
Yeah.
Nah, that's dope. So what's the best and worst advice anybody's ever given?
I would say like some of the best advice, probably from my grandfather. He said two things. He's like, keep God first, and then after that, put yourself first. Like he's like, yo, you matter. So don't ever put that at the back burner. What you're trying to get done, and that's something similar to what my mom said. She's like, your 20s, you got to be selfish. My mom said that, and I never expected somebody to tell me to be selfish, but I think I hear where she's coming from as I like progress through that. I'm 26 now. Is that you have to remember who you are and what you're trying to accomplish, in this season of your life.
And the worst advice. And you don't have to say who gave. You don't have to say who gave it to you, but we're not gonna put them on blast.
I won't. Worst advice would be to take out certain loans, because you got to pay them back. Like simple as that, like I don't. just you have to like knowledgeably use credit, but I'm glad that
Hmm.
I figured out those things now.
Man, yeah, no, that's a good one. When I was old enough to get credit, they gave me everything in the world. And I can remember, um, you know what? The first time me and Brown kicked, because me and Brown we knew each other, but we didn't kick it hard until we went to San Diego to this like college event where a whole bunch of people got together, and it was called a Greek show, is what it was. All these fraternities and all this stuff, and
Okay.
I wanted to be fresh, and so I went to Nordstrom's and I got a credit card, and so when or they gave me a credit or something. So anyway, I get back to the house and I come in with just bags. And my mother was like, "Where'd you get all that?" You know what I'm saying? She was very inquisitive as to, she knew me. Like, man, all mothers that love their children know their children. So she's like, "Where'd you get all that?" Whatever. And I was like, "Nah, don't even worry about it. I'm just gonna wear it this weekend and I'm gonna take it back." You know what I'm saying? She said, "You're not gonna take that back." You know what I'm saying? And she made me keep it. And that was like kind of my lesson into credit, and like, okay, you have to be responsible with it, and you can't just and I appreciate that lesson, because it was kind of like, even though I still abused it, I had like a measuring point of just like, okay, you just can't take it and just do whatever with it. So your thoughts on cancel culture? So many people are getting canceled right now.
Yeah. That one, I'm honestly not a fan of cancel culture at all. I think that people are too quick um
Mm-hmm.
to say cancel him or her.
Mm-hmm.
I think that comes from a place of ego, honestly, and people people are too quick to try and tear down somebody's career, and I think that's ego driven, honestly. Um, because people work hard to like build their careers, and they're just so quick to say, we want to destroy your career, and I don't get that. If there's like actual proof, but I think that now people are running to cancel somebody before they've even had a chance to speak for themselves about the situation.
I'll give you one better. We've all done things cancel worthy. Maybe not an action. It could just be something we've said. You know what I'm saying? Just something we've said, just feeling ourselves, or just whatever, like something we said. And I say that to just say, we all human, man. We make mistakes, whatever. I feel that you know, unless it involved, let's say, forcible physical stuff, just whatever, like, I get that part, you know what I'm saying? But if it's not forcible physical stuff, rape, or just or hitting somebody, or just whatever, it's kind of like, we're human, man. We're gonna and then sometimes you can't be the best you until you stumble. You know what I'm saying? And you say like, "Oh," you know what I'm saying? Like, man, I've been very fortunate where like a lot of people gift me with game, man. Like they always have. Like I don't. That's probably my superpower. People talk to me. Like people who have game to give or resources to give, they kind of take me under their wing. Like they don't mind sharing and doing whatever. And it's kind of like, you know, um, until you're at, so the worst advice I've ever been given, a guy told me, never teach a fool. And it made me look at the person who told me that kind of funny, like, damn, you never teach, man, you got, whatever. And so I pondered on it for several years. And what I realized, and I came to, conclusion on my own, is that if you got a fool around you, if you don't correct him, he'll fuck you up. You know what I'm saying? So you got like, you can it's cool if they're not in your circle and they kind of like out a little bit, then it's kind of like, okay, man, that's not your place. Like, that's whatever. But if it's somebody that what they're doing can come into your hemisphere, you might want to say a little something to try to protect yourself or whatever. But yeah, I feel that everybody's just kind of going crazy with cancel culture right now. And it's kind of like, I feel a lot of cancel culture is people trying to divert attention from one place to another place. And then you have all these people that are just like the hungry mob with the pitchforks that are just they just want anything to get stirred up, stirred up about, so they can just be on this cause or be on that cause. But yeah, that's that. So what's your most memorable music experience?
I have so many, honestly. So many.
The most, the top, one of the top three.
I would say, like, I guess being from New Jersey and getting to rock with Miss Lauryn Hill was probably like one of my top experiences earlier this year, playing a festival of like with all the people that like I grew up listening to, like everybody. Like I don't think there's a song I heard that entire weekend being at the festival that I didn't know, which was like surreal for me. So that's one of them. Rocking with someone from the same state, a legend, and but there's so many I could go on for days, but that's one of them. I'll keep it.
Nah, hey man, that's nothing to sneeze at. You know what I'm saying? That's definitely nothing to sneeze at. So I believe that the chances of it happening are greater than the chances of it not happening. Name your biopic if you could have one.
Name it. I will call it The Just. Yeah, The Just. That's what I will call it.
And who would you want to play you?
That's tricky. That's I don't know if I can answer that one. People say that I look like Chris Brown, so maybe he would do a good job. He can act and dance. I'm sure he could probably figure out some saxophone stuff too if he tried.
I'll shoot higher and older.
Higher and older?
Uh-huh. Homeboy from he played in Star Wars. He played in Star Wars. He played in what else did he play in? He's a great actor, man. He's from London, but okay. Dang, I can't remember his name. But I don't say that because he kind of looks like you. I say that because he's just a high level thespian that I feel could just kind of capture. Like he would immerse himself into like everything you've talked about tonight. Like I could just see him doing that. Okay. So, who, if you could think of, and you'd say one musician, who's the one musician that made you say, you know what, I want to do that?
That's tricky. There's one saxophonist I'm really influenced by. His name is Kirk Whalum. I used to watch his videos. Ooh. Yeah.
Big deal. That's a big deal.
Yeah, I listen to his album, The Gospel According to Jazz, like chapter 2, like once a year. So it's about that time, around November. I got to listen to it again this year. You know.
So if you had to choose, as far as jazz is concerned, straight ahead jazz, improvisation, like what's your favorite in the family of jazz? Like what's the thing that you gravitate towards that you feel you excel at?
Me personally, that's a tough one. I mean, I'm a writer, I'm a producer, but I'm also a soloist. Like, don't tell me to solo because I'm a solo. Don't. We're gonna have a problem. So,
I believe you.
Yeah, I love writing. I love being in the studio, but I also love being on stage and solo. And they're both like joys. I can't even pick one anymore.
So how did you learn to pull back?
Being an artist, it really helped me to pull back and know that you got to know how to play which gig you're on. You know, like yeah, you got to know when it's your show and when it's not. And being blessed to have my own shows, gave me the freedom and artistic space to get that out my system and do my thing when I'm doing my thing. Um, so that when I'm supporting another artist, you know, whether it's like with Hypnotic or the Gorillas or whoever else, you know, Miss Hill, you can kind of just sit back and know that, you know, when I do my thing, I'm getting it all out artistically. That's what everybody's project is for. You know, you don't come to, you know, work doing. You got to do the job before you do your own agenda. That's just a wise thing to do.
Hey, and I can tell, yeah, no, man, my homeboy, he road manages Lauren sometimes, and yeah, man, you called her by Miss Hill, man. That lets me know you've been in the circle. you, you
Yeah.
you're closer to the circle than being further away from the circle. But nah, that's dope. You know, that's with anything, and I'll recommend a book to you. 48 Laws of Power. Hey,
My brother's been talking about that every day. I have the audiobook now.
never outshine the master, man. Never outshine the master. That's a fact, and I struggle with that because I like to state my opinion. Those that I'm comfortable with, I like to state my opinion to them, and your opinion is never really important to anybody other than you. You know what I'm saying? Unless it's affecting you, and that's just. And I got a life coach too, and I'm on a journey of being and all that because I could see you. I could tell how much you love music, and I know your passion. Like I know, like it's I get it, but it takes a certain level of restraint to be with your idols, and I won't go as far to say idol, but people who you highly admire. You know what I'm saying? And for you to have you're not able to really cut loose the way you just want to, you know, cut loose. But nah, that's dope. That's dope. So how has your faith system affected the way that you move?
Okay. Yeah, really, like, I don't believe in like necessarily treating people how they treat me. I think that you should treat people with love and respect,
Mm-hmm.
even if they don't give you that.
I feel you.
'Cause a lot of people, you know, there's been people that haven't, and I gotta be like, yo, God bless you, man.
My thing is never let a person make you different than who you are. And a lot of people, a lot of people I know they differ with that. But I feel like if you allow someone to make you different than who you are, you become when you step into a world of being who you're not, you're susceptible to all kinds of stuff that you don't know how to maneuver in that space. And so
Mm,
where who you are, you can control that. Once you get into that space that's not you, I've just seen it backfire on people, man. Like I've seen people become emotional when it comes to business and stuff like that or whatever. And it's just kind of like uh it's almost like some Islamic people, they believe that, you don't drink or you don't get high or you shouldn't drink or get high because when you do, you open yourself up for like a jinn or something bad to come into you that, and then you won't be control of like who you are or whatever. And I believe that like when you allow people to stir you up and then you want to kind of fight them the way that they're dealing with you, if you don't know how to fight them like that, it's kind of like you're getting some steam off your chest, but you're stepping in the waters that you don't even know about that. You know what I'm saying? And they, know about that. So, no, I appreciate that answer. That was dope. So, what's your ultimate goal?
my ultimate goal really is to transcend music, be like a mogul, influence a lot of areas, fashion and film, business in general. I think that at the end of the day, I'm a creative, I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm gonna want to, as I, attain more success, I'm gonna wanna be creative outside of music, like more aggressively.
You don't want to be in a box. A box is not for you.
Yeah, at all. I don't fit into boxes. Like as soon as like I feel like I may fit into something, That's how I know it's that I'm getting close. Is when I start to fit into something, I'm getting close to being out of that area.
Nah, that's dope. That's dope. That's real dope. So something that I do every weekend, I listen to one album in its entirety. I go back. I did whether it's jazz, whether it's hip hop, whether it's like rare grooves, soul music, ska, um, punk, reggae, whatever. I feel that um, culturally, and I used to say generationally, but I don't think it's. I don't. I think that that's a missed term. But I think culturally, we're just where people are right now. Their attention span is a song at a time. That's just what it is, a song at a time. What's the last album that you've listened to in its entirety?
Ooh, I definitely feel like I'm a product of my generation when it comes to that. Honestly,
Nah, hey man, that's
honestly, and I listen to lots of music. Probably my album that's about to come out. That's the last album I listened to in entirety. But that's a tough one. There's a producer named Jules. I don't remember the name of his project, but when his project came out, me and my friend were chilling. He came over to the crib and he dropped an album at the end of last year. His name is Jules. Um, his album from 2021 was the last album I like sat down and actually listened to. I once. I was like, oh, this is fire.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I tried to listen to an album on Monday, and it's so crazy how like the world has evolved. And it's from a hip hop group that like was really influential in my 11th, 12th, and then after I graduated high school, whatever. And I tried to listen to their first album, and I was just kind of like, what made them so big? Like I was trying to understand what the connect was, but the connect was they were on MTV a lot. And at the time, you know, back in like 89, 86, 87, you know, you didn't have social media. So like MTV was your social media. Like that's how you saw or how you connected with an artist or you connected with songs to get you to want to buy and whatever. And I tried to listen to the album and I just kept skipping song to song. And but the funny thing about it, back in 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, I know I listened to that album over and over and over again because it was so dope to me, but I just couldn't catch it now. But that's kind of where I'm at. I feel that um, every weekend I at least have to make the attempt to listen to an album in its entirety. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Just to because the thing about it is there are some dope albums that are dope in their entirety. You know what I'm saying? And but there are far and few in between. But I just kind of do that to for myself to kind of just stay in touch with some stuff. So other than hip hop, what would you say is your genre of music that you other than hip hop and jazz? What would be a genre of music that you like to listen to that you appreciate?
I listen to tons of dancehall, like more than anything else. Dancehall and then Afro beats. That's yeah. I listen to a pile load of dancehall almost every day.
So when you say dance hall, do you mean pinchers and all that kind of dance hall, or you mean more contemporary dance hall?
Yeah, more contemporary like trap dancehall. I listen to a lot of yeah, the like modern guys, like Popcorn. Um,
Okay,
I listen to a lot of Vibes Cartel still.
okay.
Skillet Bang, um, Cranium, Dexter Daps, like a lot of music that's coming out of Jamaica right now, I'm really like in touch with like right now. And then Afrobeats as well, the Wiz Kids, Davido, Burna Boy, Thames, all of them as well.
There's one thing that is difficult for me to connect with when it comes to Caribbean culture.
Yeah.
Cocoa bread is good.
Uh-oh.
Cocoa bread is good, but it cuts the flavor of the patty, man. I'd rather take two patties and just stack them on top of each other and eat them, man. But that's the foodie in me, Just
You gotta try hardo bread then instead, because cocoa bread's a bit thicker.
uh-huh.
Hardo bread, 'Cause that's the famous way to do it: cocoa bread and a beef patty. But hardo bread
Hmm.
and a beef patty is gonna slap.
Is that the one that comes in the loaf?
Yeah,
Yeah, now that I can
yeah,
rock with that. I've had that. It's dense. It's like a dense. It's not the cocoa bread's more spongy, but it's dense. But yeah.
yeah.
And I was at the Caribbean store on Monday, so that
Okay.
yeah, I went through and I had to get my beef and chicken patty on. Man, I'm a carnivore, so we don't discriminate. We be beefing and chicken and up on those patties. So
I feel
yeah,
you.
that's that. So if you could curate a versus artists dead or alive playing against each other, what would be your dream versus that you'd like to see?
Um, Jay-Z and Kanye. Like, that's got to be Jay-Z and Kanye.
I would say it wouldn't be fair. And the reason it wouldn't be fair is because Kanye's a producer also.
Exactly.
That's the part. No, but that's dope though. That's a dope versus. That is a dope versus. But you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like as dope as Jay-Z is, and I mean, man, lyrically, oh, I'll tell you what, you being from Jersey, Biggie fan, super duper. There's one song that I listen to whenever I want to appreciate Biggie and Jay-Z at the height of their game. To me,
Hmm.
Brooklyn's finest.
Hmm.
Look that up. Look up Brooklyn. They're sparring with each other and they're going back, and I'm just like, whoo, whoo.
Yeah, yeah,
And, and I'm going back and forth like, dang, these dudes were dope. These dudes are just like, man. And it's like it almost exhausts me. I'm like,
yeah.
I'm like, damn, these dudes is coming hard. But yeah, Brooklyn's finest. So with all that being said, um, with the pandemic coming in, you not being able to travel, you not being able to go out and play with other musicians the way you would have liked to play with other musicians. How do you see social progression in the next 2 years from where we're at right now?
Where we're at right now, I think that honestly, I think that we're in a time. Although we talked about cancel culture, I think we're in a time where anything goes, and
That's a fact.
all, anything goes right now. So I think that now's the time you're gonna see people really doing and expressing what they want, and I think the pandemic really played into that. So so many people have quit their jobs to pursue what they want to pursue in life. I think that yeah, it's a time where life is getting very liberal. People are doing exactly what they want and being who they want to be. So I think you're gonna see people's true colors,
You know,
good and bad.
I've worked for myself since 98, 99, totally away from a job, like 98, 99. And one of the most mind-blowing things to me that I saw during the pandemic was the people that I knew that worked at these like cushy companies and all this kind of stuff. Um, them realize they could work from home and then really get on some stuff where they was like, man, I don't want to go back to the office. And not because they're like, oh, I don't want to go back to the office because I don't want to be in a closed area and around people, but like, man, why am I killing myself when I can do it? I can do it from home. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying? So I think with the pandemic, with all the carnage that we saw and all the horrible things that happened, I agree with you. It was liberating to a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? And they became liberated and they're just like, man, you know what? Instead of me waiting to do this or waiting to do that, it might not be a tomorrow. Like, man, I need to like I need to jump into the double dutch right now. So then you see people that didn't have the courage, and then also people who were like, I'm just gonna hoard money and I'm gonna work and hoard money to people where they're like, and even myself where like I've never had a whole bunch or just whatever, but I've just during the pandemic I was kind of like, man, I need to pivot because I do work for myself, and I need to figure out what's going to be the direction that I'm going to move in with the resources that I have in order to try to sustain the resources that I have. So, nah, man, well, dude, I want to thank you. You know, Brown put the super stamp on you. It was great hanging out with you and talking to you at the Gorilla Show. Man, I'll be, I did my little research on you before we had the interview, and I mean, you're no more accomplished than what I thought you were. Like, I mean, when you see people in a certain area, in a certain space, it takes more than just a hanger on or a beer around her to be in that space and you to have a talent. You know what I'm saying? So, with that being said, man, I look forward to seeing you do incredible stuff, man. And when you back in LA, man, hit me up. Let me know when you're gonna be out doing your thing. You know,
yeah, definitely.
I'm not above coming out, man. I'm not gonna blow you up or hang on your coattails, but I love to come out and check you out and see what you do, man. I love jazz music.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that. Yeah, a lot of stuff is gonna be coming end of this year into next year. So a lot of dope music and yeah, just art. So thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And shout out to Brown for putting us in touch. You know, it happened quickly, and I like when things move fast.
Yeah. No, and you know, like he's because of our business relationship and personal relationship, it's kind of one of those things. If he points me in a direction, I kind of don't even have to look at the ground before I move forward. It's kind of like there's a reason you know what I'm saying? like there's a reason, and I appreciate this this me hooking up with you. What can people look forward to, and what socials should they go to if they are just becoming familiar with who you are?
Sure. Yeah. So I've got an album called Dominion coming out in November. We just released the first single. It's featuring Bilal on the track. That just came out about 2-3 weeks ago. The next single's coming out in about 3 days. Yeah, on Friday. The album's coming out in about 3-4 weeks, right before Thanksgiving. So look out for that. And JustKing Jones everywhere. JustKingJones.com, Instagram, JustKing Jones, TikTok, YouTube. Stay tuned for like a lot of dope music videos and all that stuff coming from me. So yeah.
So this single coming out on Friday, man. Can you tell us a little bit about it before we tune out, man? A little.
Yeah, no, it's definitely on this Afro tip. More so the saxophone's like in the background of it. More so me like singing, playing the flute kind of stuff on it.
Okay.
Love story, something for the ladies. It's a song for the ladies, so and for the fellas too, to play for your ladies or for everybody. It's for everybody. It's for lovers. So look forward to that. I love making it, and I'm excited for it to be out. Stepping into new areas of art. So I'm excited.
Well, man, I'm not foreign to taking good music and throwing it into my mischief, and so I'll definitely slide it into some of my weekend hanging out and mischief getting and whatnot, or loving, or whatever wherever space you are in your life. But nah, man, I appreciate you. This has been another episode of Splendid Radio on Pharcyde TV, and I'll catch up with you when you get back in LA.
All right, sounds good. Peace.
All right, man. Thank you.
All right, take it easy.